Welcome back to another sewing tutorial. If you're new here, hi, I'm Leah. I studied fashion design, pattern making and worked as a seamstress for 3 years. And now I'm going to show you how you can make your clothes yourself. I have chosen a really nice linen fabric and I've made the Ella shorts in the same fabric already. And I love them so much. I'm going to make another pair of long pants in the same fabric. For the pants you need the fabric, and please pre-wash so they don't shrink when washing for the first time. And then you also need the pattern and some elastic. For the elastic you can just measure around your waist and choose a comfortable tightness, not too tight I recommend, but also add 2 centimeters to overlap. I have the pattern and the pocket pattern already, and now I'm going to show you how you can cut the pattern out and prep your fabric. You can either cut along the dashed line and then tape it on, or you can just cut off the corners and match up the crosses and tape it on. This way it is a little faster initially, but the pattern isn't as flat when storing, but for just making the pants and in general it doesn't really matter. Just a personal preference. Always important to check that you have printed on 100%, so the sizing is right and your printer doesn't play any funny jokes on you. But just check that this box is 5 centimeters and 5 centimeters. This one is the inch box, just in case you measure in inches more comfortably. And next, with the sizing chart you can choose your perfect size, and then you know how to cut your pattern. Here I have double the line marked with a mirrored edge just to fold down for the tunnel, and just be sure to cut the upper line, and the second one is to fold down. To ensure that the pants are the right length, you can measure just underneath your waist on the side down to the floor. And if you want to wear shoes with the pants, just make sure you consider the shoes. But then you can measure how long you want your pants. And unfortunately I'm not as tall as I want to be, but so I have to shorten the pants a little bit. Now here, just consider that you are going to fold down the width of the elastic and 1 centimeter more, and just leave enough room for the seam at the bottom. If you want to make pockets, just make sure you cut the pocket piece as well. And then we're ready to prepare the fabric. To make sure you're going to have straight pants and that the side seam is not going to come forward, you need to be sure that you cut exactly with the thread running straight. For that you have to prepare your fabric first, of course wash your fabric and then get a straight corner. To just demonstrate, when you cut at the end you can either ask the person to tear the fabric when you buy the fabric, or if it's not possible you can just pull on one thread, and as long as it goes the whole way across then you have a straight edge. You can cut the fuss off and pin it along each other. So because I need both pieces twice, I've just folded the fabric in half, and the thread running is marked here, which means you have to check for the threads that they are running straight and that your fabric is folded really straight. You can also always pin along the edges when you have a straight edge, or if you have stripes, you can match up the stripes and just ensure that is super straight all the way. I'm going to do that since I have stripes, and of course I'm doing it on the corner, that the corner is folded exactly the same all the way, and then I'm just going to make sure that in the middle there is another one that is exactly matched up. Now you can pin the pattern pieces onto the fabric, and when doing so, just make sure the thread running is super straight. And for that, you can just measure from the edge of the fabric at the start and at the end that it is super straight. With this pattern, again, the seam allowance is already included, so there's nothing that can go wrong. And also, as I always say, just pin generously so that the pattern for sure doesn't move when cutting. And if you have a roller blade on the mat, you can keep it lying flat and it's super easy to cut. But when you are cutting with scissors, which is great as well, just pin a little bit more, because when you're lifting, the fabric moves again, and that's what we don't want. Cutting straight is super important so that you have straight pants in the end, of course. If you want to make pockets, you can also now cut the pocket piece 4 times. Now you have the front of the pants twice, the back of the pants twice, and 4 times the pocket, and then you can take off the pattern. First, I'm now overlocking the round part of the pocket, and that I'm doing with all the 4 pieces separately. If you don't have an overlocker, just do a zigzag stitch. This is just to make sure that it keeps nice in the wash, and you're not going to see anyways, it's going to be inside the pants. Originally with this pattern, I am saying to use a 3.5 centimeter wide elastic, which I have here, but I think today I want to use a more narrow one, so I'm just going to do that. But it doesn't matter, you can choose what you want to do. If you are using a smaller elastic, the waistband will be a bit higher, but you can cut down the difference at the top if you'd like that, or just do a bit of a higher waisted pants, just however you prefer. These pants are about mid-rise, so they're not too high-waisted, but they're not too low either. So yeah, just decide what you prefer. This is the lower line, is the original line of the height of the pants. So you just always need the height of the elastic plus 5 millimeters, so you have a bit of a wiggle room for the tunnel, and then you need 1 centimeter on top of that to fold down as seam allowance. I'm just going to leave the height as is, and I'll show you how you can continue. Here you have to pay attention. You can just leave them as you have cut them, and then just fold them open so that the cutout faces each other. If both sides are the same, it doesn't matter, but if you have a nice side, the nice side of the fabric needs to face up. You need the pockets and your elastic, and first you have to, on the side, measure down 1 centimeter, and then my elastic is now 1.5 centimeters, so I need 2 centimeters. So I will be folding in 1 centimeter and 2 centimeters down, so I have a nice tunnel. So the end of it is going to be down here, which is 2 centimeters lower from that. For me, with an elastic that is 1.5 centimeters wide, it's a total of 5 centimeters. And then I can take the pocket, and with the pocket I want the top part of the fabric within the tunnel so it holds up, which means I need it 1 centimeter higher than the bottom of the tunnel so that it is within the tunnel. So therefore I can measure 1 centimeter up, which is now a total of 4 centimeters for me. So on all the parts I can now place the pockets 4 centimeters down. Now here as well, this is how I've cut them. Can fold them open so I have the nice side of the fabric facing upwards. I can measure down the 4 centimeters from the waist and pin the pocket on. With 1 centimeter seam allowance, I am sewing on the pockets. At the start and at the end I'm always doing a few back and forth stitches, and I'm using stitch length 2.5. I am overlocking the side seams where I've sewn on the pockets. The pockets I'm just leaving on as I've pinned and sewn them on, and I'm doing so from the opposite side where I've sewn on the pockets, because I'm going to iron it this way. So I have the top stitch of the overlocker facing upwards, and if you don't have an overlocker, just do a zigzag stitch. This is just to be sure that it keeps nice in the wash. Just be sure not to cut into the pocket and check that it lies nice. For all pieces, you can open up the pockets and iron them flat out like this. When I have ironed all the pockets flat, I am just checking that it is truly flat and nice, and then I can choose a longer stitch, about 3.5, and now I can sew on the side of the pocket exactly in the seam allowance along the edge, that they keep lying flat like I want them to. And this I'm doing for all 4 pieces. I take the 2 back pieces, which are the pieces with the deeper cutout, and I place them facing the cut to the inside, and the nice finish of the pocket and fabric lies like this. The seam is on that side. I'm taking the front piece with the nice finish facing the nice finish of the back piece like this. Here I'm now pinning the whole side seam to the bottom, paying attention that the pocket aligns nice and flat. The overlock threads I'm always leaving a little bit longer, but they don't need to be that long, just long enough so that they don't fray. And I'm also pinning the inside. Now when everything is pinned, you can sew the inseam with 1 centimeter seam allowance and the side seam of the pants. you can start as well with 1 centimeter seam allowance, and then you're going down. Here it's important you're going lower, 1 centimeter lower than the edge. Then you can go out. Here you go down with 1 centimeter seam allowance again, follow it up, and here you have to go 1 centimeter above the edge again, like this. When you've sewn up here, you have to go out a bit further, again 1 centimeter, so that you can follow down here with 1 centimeter seam allowance again. So down, all around, up here, and then down again. Here I am doing a few back and forth stitches, as always, at the start and at the end, and I am using stitch length 2.5. With the needle down, I can lift and turn, and now I'm exactly at 1 centimeter here. I am also with 1 centimeter seam allowance closing the inseam. And now, of course, the exact same thing for the other pant leg. When you're done with that, you can overlock the inseam, and I'm doing so from the back piece, which has the deeper rounding, so that when I'm ironing forward, the overlock stitch lies with the top facing upwards. It's not really bad if you don't do that, it's just something nice to have. And if you don't have an overlock, again, just do a zigzag stitch. Of course, again, for both legs, I am ironing the inseams of both legs towards the front. And the side seam I'm also ironing to the front. At the top you can easily pull it over, but for the lower part you can also just lay it flat. Always pulling it apart so that I'm sure it lies super flat. Now I'm turning it over and ironing from the other side as well, just to be sure that it is very nice and flat and in the right place. And of course the same thing for the second leg. I have one leg turned inside out and one leg with the nice side out. I am taking the one with the nice side out, and then I'll push the leg into the other leg. Then I can match up the inseam and pin it on top of each other. Then I can pin the rounding together. And now I am ready to sew it together. Here I do this with 1 centimeter seam allowance, and I will do it once, and then I'll go back exactly where I've just sewn and sew above it like a second time. This is just to make sure when you're squatting and sitting that the pants will hold. With pants you will always want to do that. Now I've sewn the seam twice, and then I can overlock. You can iron the inseam towards one side. It doesn't matter which side, just into the same direction all around. I'm doing an overlock stitch at the top edge. Here I'm just paying attention that the pocket lies into the right direction. The pocket doesn't go into the seam now, so just be careful that it doesn't go anywhere close, but just check that the side seam lies to the right direction and nice and flat. Here as well, just all the seams should lie nice and flat, facing the right direction. Now I am ironing down 1 centimeter all around. And then I am ironing down 2 centimeters for the tunnel. Now if you have a bigger rubber band, you need to adjust. You need to iron down the width of your rubber band plus 5 millimeters. And when you come to the pocket, just check that it lies nice and flat with the same distance to the top, and then you can quickly pin it on. So it keeps how it should. And then when you are ironing down for me the 2 centimeters, the pocket should be nicely within the tunnel. Just make sure it stays in place. Always checking that you iron down the same amount for a nice and clean tunnel. And I'm also pinning it down so it stays. Now again, when I'm at the pocket, I check that the pocket is nice and clean in the tunnel everywhere and nice and straight with the same distance to the top everywhere. Then I can pin it on, pin the pocket on as well, so that it doesn't move. When I've pinned all around, I can start following the edge with a longer stitch, about 3.5 to 4, but at the back in the middle I leave an opening so that I can pull the rubber band in. Now you need a safety pin and your elastic, and then you can pull it through the tunnel. And then you can pin it on top of each other, and I'm doing now a zigzag stitch on top of the edge here and another one on top here. Just check that nothing is twisted in the tunnel before you close it. Then you can pull it in, and now I am closing the opening. Then you can try on your pants and hem them to the length you want them. The end of the overlock, you can use a long needle and just pull it in so that it doesn't open up again. What you can also do is a knot. That's not as nice, but I really can't find my needle at the moment, so yeah, well, not perfect, but then you can iron up the pants to finish the bottom seam. I'm doing 5 centimeters, and you can check how much you want when trying them on. Last but definitely not least, you can now hem your pants, and for that I'm choosing a longer stitch again because this is a visible stitch, and I'm just hemming both legs to my preferred length.